let's begin. Uh, I want to welcome everyone to the third episode of the Crypto Subscription Show. Today we have a special guest. Uh, it's Jeff Wentworth, co-founder of Curvegrid. Jeff, hello. The microphone is on yours. Please introduce yourself and your role at the company.
Hi, Konstantin. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be on episode number 3, and yeah, thanks for having me here today. My name's Jeff Wentworth. I'm one of the co-founders at Curvegrid. We're a blockchain middleware company based here in Tokyo, Japan, and our product is Multibass, which is blockchain middleware that makes it fast, easy, and cost-effective to build different kind of blockchain applications on many different EVM-based blockchain networks. So with Multibass, you get an easy-to-use web UI and a REST API, SDKs, hard hat plugins, and all of the kind of pieces and components that you would need to build any kind of blockchain application. So it's got an integrated chain indexer. It's got what we call event queries, basically event and time series data, aggregation, built-in cloud wallets, type conversions, and many, many more features and functions. In addition, Curvegrid, we also offer professional services related to not just a product, but also blockchain development, primarily smart contract development, but also any kind of help that you might need to build your blockchain application. So that's me, and that's Curvegrid.
Oh, I didn't know about the last part that you also offer in the help with the development. That's great. Can you tell about the origin, the story, how you came up with the idea and what inspired the founding of Curvegrid and Multibass?
Yeah, absolutely. So Curvegrid's been around for 7 years. And William and myself, my co-founder, we originally had this idea to build a decentralized warehouse management system on the blockchain. So think, e-commerce and managing T-shirts or trinkets or what have you in a warehouse through smart contracts. We started building that actually first as part of a hackathon, and then over the subsequent weeks. And what we discovered was that very early on, we were just building all sorts of infrastructure in order to basically manage the DApp that we were building, this kind of decentralized warehouse management vision. And so we thought, well, if we're having this problem, there's got to be many other people out there that are having the same issue. And so that became our product, Multibass, and the rest is history, as they say.
What was the hackathon?
It's funny you ask. So the original hackathon was the Consensus SUS, as in the the news website,
Yeah.
2017 hackathon in New York, and we won a prize there actually, which was the Consensus SYS
Huh.
prize, and we were all excited. I mean, I think we were something like 2 weeks into the founding of Curvegrid at that point, and we'd just gotten off a plane from Tokyo. We showed up late because we found out about the hackathon late, and we didn't actually get to build much. I mean, this is pre-Truffle, pre-Hard Hat, almost pre-MetaMask maybe. Like there was an early Web3 browser called Mist. Did you ever use Mist, Konstantin? Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
No. Anyway, it was Mist, and it was basically a reskinned version of Chrome with a built-in Web3 wallet, but it looked totally different, right? And so we spent a day and a half sort of building this and not really getting a lot done, and then we presented, and it's funny, we were excited because we won the Consensus SYS award for it, but the award was basically for the team that needs the most help, which is clearly us because we had no idea what we were doing. But it was inspiring. We went on basically and sort of took that like tiny success and tiny win, and it was very inspirational to sort of turn that eventually into Multibass.
Could you tell more about Multibass? How does it simplify the process for the developers?
Yeah, absolutely. So Multibass is a platform that can be used by really any Web2 or Web3 developer. And for a Web2 developer, it's Web3, I think, can be a very daunting place. when you start to get into building a blockchain application, you realize that you need all of these different components in order to interact with the blockchain, right? So the blockchain is a very, and I'm going to get a little bit technical for a second, but the blockchain is uh, basically an eventually consistent, globally distributed database and compute platform. And so there's some things related to that which are different from your regular paradigm of I'm building in Python or I'm building in Node.js or JavaScript, and I'm talking to a NoSQL database or I'm talking to a SQL database, and I'm running on a centralized cloud, with the idea being that when you send a transaction to the blockchain, you're not exactly sure when it's going to be confirmed, and you're not exactly sure if it will, if it could be unconfirmed at some point, right? Because we have these things called chain reorganizations. So already in sort of 20 seconds of explanation, I've probably thrown out a bunch of terms there that for anyone listening who's not a developer, who's not a Web3 developer, might be confusing. But suffice it to say, there's a few different components that are really critical to building a successful production blockchain application, right? So you go beyond sort of your initial kind of trying things out, and I'm starting to build my blockchain-based game or my blockchain-based finance application, and now I want to build something that's a real production application. And so I need things like a chain indexer. I need things like access to a cloud wallet, which allows me to automate large volumes of transactions. I need access to a REST API, and I need role-based access control. And I need not only a development environment, because it's just been me sort of playing around, maybe in a hackathon, but I also need a shared test environment and then a production environment with different kinds of permissions and different sorts of controls between them. And then as I'm developing my smart contract, right, the computer program that runs on the blockchain, I need to be able to repeatedly and consistently deploy it to the blockchain and then communicate the way that it's being deployed to the other developers that are working on this blockchain application, right? Because a DApp, a blockchain application, as you know, Konstantin, is not just a set of smart contracts. And in fact, it's not just one smart contract. Typically, it's 5 or 10 or 50 or 100 smart contracts that all work together. I think if you look at something like the Aave lending platform, it's something like 63 smart contracts, around that number deployed in production. So every time you do an update, it may be to all 63, it might just be to one of them, it might be to 10 of them. You need to communicate those updated wallet addresses to your other developers that are working on the system, right? And so all of these parts about building a blockchain application start to get really complicated. And basically with Multivast, we've pulled all of these disparate pieces together and packaged them into a platform that plugs into your usual Web2 development processes when you think about them at CI or CD, continuous integration, continuous development, that and things like roles and separation of concerns and separation of production from test from development, as well as everything that you might want from a Web3 development perspective. And we put that all together in one kind of package or platform. And so it makes it really easy not only to develop, in a hackathon, let's say, but also to develop, test, build, and deploy production blockchain applications or production dApps as well. Bit of a long answer to your question, but I'm hopefully that paints a little bit of a picture of what Multivast is useful for, and what the kind of value that our customers and our partners get out of it.
That's great insight into that. I'm quite ashamed that despite being the founder and CEO of the Web3 company, I'm not familiar with a lot of the concepts, with blockchain and with the development. So I will definitely have another listen to our conversation to understand better all that layers. And definitely, it sounds like blockchain adds a lot of the complexity into the development. And we should add also to that currently the majority of the applications, they are multi-chain. So it adds even more layer to that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're living in a multi-chain world, I think there's a song that goes something like that. But with on-chain summer last year, and I think we're set for another on-chain summer this year with just a proliferation of layer twos and even layer threes and even some new layer ones, that are fit for purpose, fit for different purposes. I think it's absolutely critical that the blockchain applications are able to quickly and easily and repeatably deploy across different chains. So yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and what there are other blockchain development kits on the market. What
Sure,
sets Curvegrid apart from them? What is unique about
sure.
that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the fact that we're pulling all of these features into one platform is fairly unique. Some of our customers and partners have come to us because they want everything in one place. So chain indexer, REST API, aggregated events, cloud wallet, um, all of these sorts of pieces, role-based access control, webhooks as well, which I surely can't forget, a multi-sig interface. So all of these sorts of different components, it can be very convenient to use them in one platform. And I think that's one key thing to highlight is that it's not all or nothing with multibath. So you don't have to use everything, right? If you're very happy using, the graph as your chain indexer, you can use the graph and then, get all of the benefits out of multibash for kind of everything else. If you're very happy with, just writing directly to Web3.js, because maybe you have a lot of code that's already using that, and you don't sort of, you don't have a need to use Go or TypeScript or something like that with an SDK. You can do that, and then make use of all of our other components. So that's fine, right? We bring everything together at in kind of one place, and then also you don't have to. It's not take it or leave it, right? You can pick and choose as you want. I'd say another thing, if you're comparing multibass against some of the other platforms that are out there that are sort of all in one type platforms, I think although we do have a free plan for developers, for hobbyists, for students, for hackathons, and the approach we've taken with our free plan is you basically have access to all of the different features, just slightly lower limits. So, for any of those scenarios that I described, right, hobbyist, developer, hackathon, trying things out, student, uh, you're you should be fine to basically build whatever it is you want, and then as you grow and scale into a real production type DApp, we have other plans that are available for you, right? We have our developer plan, and then we've got various enterprise plans, and always happy to speak about custom plans as well. But I think like one of the key things there is where our sort of sweet spot is on production blockchain applications, right? So although we've got a lot of support and are very happy to support the broader developer community, I think where our customers get our most value is in looking to build a production blockchain application. So separate dev environment, development environment, separate test environment, separate production environment with different permissions, different access control across multiple blockchain platforms, and then also many times leveraging our deep blockchain technical expertise, right? So, we're very happy to contribute to, upstream to the open source ecosystem. We've been awarded bug bounties in the past by the Ethereum Foundation for finding bugs in both Solidity, Sol-C compiler, as well as Go Ethereum. And we do occasionally contribute upstream to those projects as well, whenever we can. Um, so I think what that means is our team has a lot of this deep technical experience in blockchain and in Web3, and that's where it comes back to our professional services around writing smart contracts, writing smart contract tests, doing sort of either deep technical or very high level strategic advice and guidance to our customers on how to architect their blockchain application or their DApp, or sort of what approaches to take, what chains to leverage, what sort of services to kind of make use of. And so I think that's where we really focus a lot of time or our effort is on this sort of production blockchain application. And I think that's another big differentiator for us versus other platforms, which are maybe a little bit more focused on the hobbyist and developer community, which I think is great. And we certainly we're there to support those communities as well. But I think our real focus is on production dApps and blockchain applications.
There have been a lot of the different sub-industries within the crypto space, Web3 space. Do you think that
Sure.
multi-bus is more suited for some of that, verticals like DeFi, gaming or decentralized social, etc., or is it for general production ready applications?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that when we were starting out 7 years ago, we and 7 years ago, right, 2017 was basically ICO boom. If you think back in time, right? So at that time, we had an idea that maybe we would build some features into multibass that were specific to some of those applications. But what we found was that the industry is quite fickle and trends change. And so rather than trying to build features and functions for what's hot at a given point in time, that we should, well, first of all, do the best job we can of building ahead of the trends. And I think that we've been doing a pretty good job of that over the last couple of years, although trends are very hard to predict. But also building long-lasting, more generally applicable technology, right? So you look at the suite of features and functions that Multibass has around webhooks, chain indexer, event queries, type conversions, smart contract interface, et cetera, et cetera. All of these are very long-lasting, generally applicable technologies and tools. And so, from ICOs to DeFi summer of 2020 to NFTs in 2021, wave one, and then more NFTs, gaming, GameFi, media, entertainment, DeFi, centralized finance, manufacturing, trade, and now, of course, decentralized social and DSOC. I mean, really, multi-bass can be used for any of these. And, I think that also fits with our idea of partnering and plugging in with different other platforms that are maybe trying to go really deep on a specific area, and that's something that we're always open to exploring. But we're happy to take a step back and be, you know, a platform that can be used for sort of anything. But we're ready, we're ready with whether it's case studies or partnerships or specific help to all of these different industries. And I'm happy to say that we've had customers and have customers in pretty much all of them as well.
You have mentioned that you were pretty good at adopting to the new trends since 2017. So I'd like to maybe get some insights about what trends do you
Sure.
predict and how do you think Curvegrid will adopt to these trends in the coming like 3 years period?
Ooh, crystal ball time. I love it.
Yeah.
Sure. Uh, so I think there's a few things, and full credit to our team for putting a lot of time and effort and thought into R&D over the last few quarters. What we do as a team is on an ongoing basis, but especially once a quarter as an engineering team, we get together and do an R&D workshop or sprint and really dive into some of these new trends that are either here or on the horizon. And then we talk about them and kind of debate them and think about them as a team. So I'll give you my personal views, which, take it or leave it. I'm not sure that, I think first of all, on the Curvegrid team, I think other people certainly have other views on this, as I'm sure you do, Konstantin. And I'm interested in a few minutes to look into your crystal ball as to what trends you're seeing. But I think one that you mentioned just a couple of minutes ago was around DSOC or DSI, right? Decentralized social. I
Yeah.
think is going to be huge, and I think that whether the open question for me is whether this is the time, this is its time, or whether we're sort of at a local kind of maximum and then it wanes again and then it comes back later, right? I mean, we all saw the major investments I think last week by some prominent VC funds in Farcast or Warpcast, right? That's great for that team. Lens obviously is out there as well, and I think opened up public minting over the last few weeks. I think that that is definitely coming, and I think, it's probably time for it, just given what's going on in the broader global space around, with some of the US's approach to TikTok, or what we see on this platform, X, or Twitter, other social platforms, right? Some of the pushback around, how people's data is being used, and advertisement, and the algorithm, whatever the algorithm is on a given platform. So I think DSOC, DSI, is definitely probably ripe for a breakout, and I think that is an area where we're going to see a lot of interest and focus. I also still think that we're probably in for, on-chain summer two this summer, in terms of L2s, and even L3s, right? We had EIP 4844 a few months ago, which is, blobs, was released and launched on mainnet, which drastically dropped the cost of all of, or many layer twos, posting transactions, posting their proofs back to Ethereum one, sorry, Ethereum one, Ethereum layer one, Ethereum mainnet. So I think we're going to see more and more, there. But I think one of the trends there is going to be a consolidation, right, of the several hundred layer two platforms that are out there. We will definitely see consolidation, right? And then I think the last piece, and this is an interesting one, again, going back to our last R&D workshop, and I probably got the EIP wrong, so somebody can check me in the comments if you like, or put your hand up. But I think it's EIP, started as EIP 3074, and then during our last R&D workshop, Vitalik sort of jumped in a Telegram group and wrote a new EIP to kind of, rewrite, the standard on this. And this, what is this EIP 3074? It is around account abstraction, and basically looking at the next iteration of account abstraction, and going from, smart on-chain wallets to basically EOAs that have account abstraction, like properties around third-party gas payments and other kinds of, account recovery, and those sorts of things. So usability, right? So those three things. The first is around DSOC, DSI. The second is around, um, L2s, and L3s, and the third is around, usability. I would also, on the more broader, sense, I think that we're going to see a lot more in gaming and entertainment. I don't think that I don't think that we've fully that has fully played out yet. And I'll add one more. I'll add a fifth one as well, which is, the continued march of, centralized finance into DeFi as well, with ETFs and with other sorts of on-chain, financial activities. So that's a lot. I gave you five there. What about you, Konstantin? What do you think? Agree, disagree? What's in your crystal ball?
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, the cycles in the process. And I remember, back in 2017 with an ICO boom, after it ended, a lot of people predicted like, it will not happen again. But actually, what we have seen is coming back on the ICO under the different names. It was an IO, it was IDO, it's launch pads. So the same technology.
TGE, token
Yes,
generation event, even
yes.
to keep it very generic. But yeah, sorry, continue.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the disruption and the liberation of the process of the investment was already there, and despite having, the problems initially with a lot of the scam projects, the technology was awesome, and people understood how beneficial is this to the previous traditional ways of fundraising. So we see that with a lot of, sub industries and trends within Web3. And you have mentioned gaming, and I believe also that the trend for gaming will come back, and this time there will be games not dedicated only to, profit making, but these will be games that will be interesting to play, but with an economical model built inside of that. Uh, and with the user experience also, uh, I second that. We are at Yoki Finance. We're big on account abstraction. We are built because of that. Uh, uh, Previously, there were a lot of attempts to create the subscription payments solutions in crypto, but they failed because it was not possible to abstract certain components, like, for example, paying gas fees on behalf of the user. So yeah, I believe it will be a very big trend, and the adoption will come once it will be easier and more straightforward, more convenient to use Web3 wallet rather than a banking application. And we're trying to build our part of that by adding the solutions like, paying for mobile phone with your wallet, and automatically topping up the utility services, and paying for streaming services like Netflix, Spotify, etc. Yeah, so I believe the trends that you have mentioned, they're all very, on spot.
Yeah, I agree, and I think actually you touched on something which is very, very interesting, right? Like the iPhone moment or the
Yeah,
Android moment for for Web3 and from like real usability, I think will come in two forms, right? And I think there's many more things that can happen, but it's going to be interesting to see, and I don't think it's an if, I think it's when. It's going to be interesting to see when Apple integrates a crypto wallet directly into iOS, or when Android integrates it Google integrates it directly into Android. I think that's going to come. I think I think it's inevitable, and I think that will be a very interesting kind of uh, turning point in usability and user adoption. I mean, we're still quite early days in Web3, right? When you look at who's using it and what they're using it for. But I think that's the first one, right? And that's another sort of even further out crystal ball moment that I think you really called out. And I think the second one, if I'm even to go a step further, is what happens when traditional financial institutions start to get into it in the retail space. So, a large U.S. retail bank is now, you're able to basically hold a crypto balance, and it could be stable coins. It might not be, some sort of core token like Ether, but I think that's going to be very interesting as well. I think it's less clear as to when or how that might happen, but I do think it's likely, and I think it's very interesting, both of those pieces, right? For higher level services like Yoki Finance, I think it's going to be very interesting because it unlocks even broader set of users. So I think what you're building now, in terms of, the kind of, decentralized subscription kind of economy and gateway, right? And focusing on self custody, transparency, user centricity. I mean, I think all of that is critical today, but I think getting kind of the building blocks in place ahead of when this just floodgate of many more users comes on chain, I think is really critical and exciting, frankly. So, kudos for what you're building.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's true that currently the use cases are narrowed to the users who are already familiar with Web3, and not only that, but also who holds some sufficient ports of their funds in Web3 wallets. And it's still, I would say, not even a majority of people inside of the industry. So yeah, once we will get more adoption, and the adoption comes in cycles, and with even with the bank subscription, initially people were very cautious for a reason to connect the bank card, to attach it, and to pay for the subscription. And with crypto, it's also the case, because the security is a big issue here, and it will take time for people to adopt to that. The technology is here, it's pretty safe to use, etc., etc. We will see the new adoption and the new interesting use cases coming out of that, because of the composable and transparent nature of the blockchain payments. But coming to the part of the users, I understand pretty much now, and who are the people using multi-bass. But what about the geographical distribution of your users? What about mm, the demographical distribution of that? Do you have any data on that you could share?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we are a Japanese company based in Tokyo, Japan, and but we do have a very international team, and our product is both localized to a degree, but also internationalized as well. And so, about half of our customers are Japanese companies, the other half are global companies. Do you have you been to Japan before, Konstantin? Actually, I should ask you that before I sort of dive into a little bit more.
No, unfortunately, I have not.
Well, maybe this year, maybe next year. We'd love to host you here if it's in the cards. Um, and I mean, Japan is really it's interesting, I think, from a couple of, well, from many perspectives, but in the Web3 space, it's sort of it got a lot of press very early on for Mount Gox, which I'm sure you're familiar with, as are all of the other
Yeah,
listeners. And from there, Japan really went quite heavy on regulation, which, uh, you know, it could have gone the other way at that point, right? Just given what was happening with Mt. Gox, and they could have, I think, shut everything down. Now, on the flip side, everything basically, every crypto exchange turned into a regulated financial institution, and there's sort of strong controls on launching tokens here, et cetera, et cetera. As a software company for Curvegrid, it's been a very good place to build because everything's very clear. Um, and it means that we can operate quite freely and openly here, and I think there's a lot of support from the broader industry. On the flip side, maybe Japan has missed some of the crazy waves of excitement and irrational exuberance over the last few years. But again, on the flip side of that, I think Japanese consumers have been very protected against some of these global events like Terra Luna or Celsius or FTX, in terms of some of those issues that have happened. And I think finally we're starting to see sort of maybe the two worlds converging globally and Japan in terms of regulation and how things operate. But you know, I kind of outline all of this as a way of saying I think a lot of people aren't really familiar with what's going on in Japan, and so this is sort of the other interesting thing, in that as big as Japan is as an economy, the world's third or fourth biggest, at least, open economy. It is quite oftentimes impenetrable because of the language barrier and the business culture barrier relative to the size of the country and its kind of geography as an island, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think that makes it oftentimes difficult for projects and companies to come into Japan. And I think on the flip side, it's often difficult for Japanese companies or projects to go global. So I think one of our strengths is straddling that, being able to sell to global companies, being able to sell to Japanese companies, and also helping some of our partners to come into Japan. So if you are listening and you have an interest and maybe obviously this offer extends to Yoki Finance as well, Konstantin. I mean, if there's an interest in kind of exploring more opportunities around what's possible in Japan, always very happy to help build those bridges, because there's a huge amount of Web3 opportunity here, and I think there's a huge amount of Web3 opportunity globally as well.
That's true. You don't hear much about, Japanese companies, the Japanese protocols in the broader Web3 space, and it seems outside that the Japanese, crypto community is more focused on the domestic market. Is it correct?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think a lot of what we see in Japan is around trading on centralized exchanges as well. I think Japan has been a little bit late maybe to NFTs and a little bit smaller. I think one of the interesting characteristics about Japan in the context of um, digital assets and ownership and IP, intellectual property, is there is just a very large amount of intellectual property in Japan, and there's all of the ideas that are sort of central to what we think of some great uses for blockchain around ownership tracking of IP and provenance of IP and digital assets. Where did they come from? Who owns them? What's their history? Whether that's art or gaming or media or manga or anime or movies or music. There's just such a rich kind of cultural well here to draw from, right? I mean, Constantine, are you into anime or manga or video games at all? I should ask.
Nope.
None of the above.
No, no, but
Totally fine. But I'm sure many of your friends and acquaintances are. And so, there's a lot of the big Japanese gaming companies, Square Enix, Konami, Sega, Sony, maybe even Nintendo. Although, I think they tend to chart their own path on a lot of these things. They've all announced various kinds of Web3 and blockchain initiatives and are working on it. And I think it will take them time. And I think there's been some sort of, tests and testing the waters and trying things out to date. But I think there's much more. I think there's much more to come there, and so I think that's a huge opportunity for Japan in the context of Web3. Another sort of crystal ball prediction, I suppose, that I think is going to happen.
there was surprisingly a lot of pushback from the users initially because of the Web3 initiatives of the major, gaming companies. So
Sure,
yeah, people were not happy with how the NFTs were implemented
sure.
inside the gaming elements. But
It, it's a great point, and just to jump in on that a bit, like, I mean, this isn't an excuse at all, but maybe a way of understanding, how things could develop, right? You think back to video games when they were, exclusively in arcades or on cartridges at home, and then we went to online games, right? So games first you could play online. I think probably the first kind of really successful one there was. In terms of like real time, exciting multiplayer was Quake, right? With Quake World, right, where they sort of solved a lot of the issues around prediction and latency, right? id Software, John Carmack, etc. And then obviously just took off from there, right? Whether it's RPGs and then MMORPGs, Ultima Online or World of Warcraft, or now we've got Fortnite and Valorant and kind of everything, or even card games, right? Like Hearthstone. So online play is so critical. But the other thing that I think there was a lot of pushback around that came out of that was, oh, now we can download our games online, and now we can buy games online, and now we can buy content within those games, online. And that's a $50 billion industry today outside of Web3. But you don't own any of that content, right? Like, you license it or you rent it, but the terms and conditions attached to that are often very opaque, and you lose access to your online account in one of these gaming stores, and your assets are gone, right? You spent, in some cases, thousands or tens of thousands of dollars over many years on these things. And I mean, that's not your time in terms of grinding out effort to get access to this, but it's actually like real money that you spent off of your credit card, or that your kids have spent off of your credit card to buy in-game skins or buy items or level up or buy in-game gold. And so I think, we accept this today as something that is like we're fine with. But my recollection of where we started with that is there was a lot of pushback at the beginning before people sort of got the endorphin hit and the adrenaline hit around having the coolest looking like hat in a game, or having the coolest looking armor, or skin, or what have you. And so this $50 billion industry that is highly centralized and very much off chain today. There's certainly been pushback about bringing it on chain, but I think a lot of that FUD is, I think a portion of it is from existing uh, game companies and IP owners seeing their existing business models kind of erode. But I think it's also from frustrated users that are just frustrated in general with kind of the current experience, but also maybe frustrated with the user experience of Web3 today, because it is still there it is still pretty challenging to manage a lot of these things, subscription-based payments, for example, which we're looking to new platforms like Yoki Finance to help fix and to bring better usability to. But I think that and that's again it's kind of a very long interlude or aside. But I think the use cases are there. We just haven't quite figured out how to make that user experience beautiful yet. But I think once we do, it will kind of unlock this step function change in what people are kind of used to today in gaming and media and entertainment.
Yeah, I'm a little bit afraid that we will switch completely the topic to Web3 gaming, but I was very astonished to learn about the size of the gaming skins market, that it's 50 billion. That was crazy for me. And when I dive deeper into how the Web3 could change that industry, I was thinking about that intercomposability of the gaming items, and that different companies could make one item playable within another game. And I thought, wow, that's a super opportunity. And I really thought that it will be used pretty pretty soon. But I think we still do not see that even within the.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to do more, certainly more collaboration with Yoki Finance. I think that some of our customers and partners are very interested in a more open, transparent, user-centric, self-custodial, recurring payment solution. I think that's going to be absolutely critical. Like all of these building blocks, right? Not only on the infrastructure side, like with our own multibass, which we're obviously very very proud of, but I think higher level financial services that can provide that kind of usefulness to companies and to individuals as they're you know uh, building their blockchain applications, right? I mean, we don't it doesn't make sense for everybody to go out and build their own recurring subscription platform, right? Better to leave it to the experts for those kinds of solutions for whatever it is they're trying to do in the gaming or entertainment space, or various kinds of vendor payments, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I think there's a lot more that we can do, Yoki Finance, Curvegrid, but also as an industry to kind of build these kinds of enabling building blocks for people to build on.
Yeah, that's true. So people, some saying that, oh, we could build that, but you don't have to actually. It's possible to build almost everything, on the high level, but people should stick to the core of their business where they really earn money, and not, disperse their attention and development time. Uh, I want to make that show interesting for the founders, for people who work in the industry. So I ask questions regarding not only your business model, but also around how do you actually acquire customers? What are your growth strategy? Could you elaborate more on the Curvegrid side of that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think when we started out, I mean, it was just the two of us, William and myself, as co-founders, and our team has grown since then. And we're about 15 today, mostly based in Japan. Uh, and when we started, right, and I come from an enterprise sales, like enterprise IT sales background, so there's some level of pattern recognition around selling to companies, and sort of in a more enterprise fashion, which means you know sitting and listening to our customers or their pain points, and then qualifying and understanding if there's an opportunity there, and then selling them some sort of combined uh, software and potentially services package on a longer, and building that kind of longer term relationship with but a very close relationship with a smaller number of kind of larger customers. And so a lot of our growth has come from referrals from existing customers, or from partners, or people who get to know us, or hear about us. And we certainly do. our own fair share of, I think, outbound marketing as well. I would say that a small but growing portion of our customers do come from people that find multi-bass on their own, maybe through a hackathon, individual developers. And I think some of those individual developers go on to build kind of the next big Web3 project. We used to do a lot more work with large corporations that were doing sort of kicking the tires and doing proofs of concept, but one-off proofs of concept. I think that what we found though is that, like as an industry, it and I think if there's maybe suggestions for other Web3 founders out there, it's you know it can be very beneficial to focus on um, projects and companies and customers and users, whether if you're doing B2C and it's in the consumer space, or if it's B2B, that are going to be there for the long term. And I think that can come in different shapes and forms. I think that you never know, right? I mean, you never know, and people's visions change or pivot, or projects get canceled or get put on hold or restart again, right? Or come out with a bang. But I think that if you can identify a user base, again, whether that's businesses or organizations or consumers, that has a genuine long-term interest and plan and need for Web3, I think that's where we'll see most, kind of growth and opportunity. And so, like, let me give you a counter example, maybe, right? But there's been a lot recently of in let's say the airdrop farming space, and you look at some of the controversy on crypto. Do we call crypto X today, or is it still crypto Twitter? Crypto, this platform, right, where the platform that we're speaking on now in this X space, where there were some Web3 projects that had promoted themselves in ways that attracted so-called airdrop farmers, and then did what might almost be viewed as kind of a mini rug pull of those same farmers later, and walked things back and said, wait a minute, like this wasn't what we meant or what we intended. This is more of a Sybil attack kind of thing. And the farmers, so-called farmers, said, wait a minute, like no, we were following your guidelines, and you can't have the big growth numbers without like we gave you the big growth numbers and number of users or number of daily active this or that or transactions on chain. And I think that kind of, like, the right incentivization, and the like the right, like, what are you trying to achieve as a project, and what kind of users do you want? And of course, if you're going to put some of these incentives out there, of course people are going to come and look at, well, like, what do I need to do, right, to kind of for this approach. And it's like, if that's what you want, you should then incentivize people that way, and get them, like, get the most number of, for example, eyeballs, or followers or community members that you can. Like, if that's what you need and want for your project, then great. But, like, what does that mean longer term, right? And are you trying to, for example, I mean, that could be really good for like some projects. Maybe it's something like, you go then and work with, and I'm making this up, Konstantin, but maybe you then go and work with, like, traditional, traditional type of, um, like, media or entertainment or movie companies, and get people to watch their movie or go to the movie theater or something like that. Like, great. Then that makes a lot of sense. But for other use cases, maybe not, right? Maybe you should think about focusing on a smaller community that's kind of more interested and dedicated to what you're doing. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of a little bit of what we see as user growth, and I think also maybe some of the anti-patterns for it. What do you see, Konstantin? Like, what's your kind of view on this?
Yeah, I have a following up question. When Curvegrid talking, and what type of the activity do you incentivize into multi-bus?
Yeah, I mean, no, it's really interesting, right? Like, and I'll be try and be as open and transparent with you and with our listeners on this as we can. Like, we've certainly talked and thought about a curve grid token in the past, but for what we're doing, which is building the pickaxes and shovels and providing it to the, those that are building out there. Um, it was hard to see it as something that had a lot of alignment with our like our kind of vision, number one, and then number two, that wasn't going to turn into a huge distraction for us. And it's been interesting over the years speaking with other founders that have launched a token, and I think to very mixed experiences, right? Like it's been great for some people. You look at some of the DeFi platforms out there that have launched a token, or some of the the blue chip NFT projects, and it's been really great as like a way to incentivize the right behavior and build sort of you know project uh, security through economic security and incentivization. But then there's other folks that like kind of get sucked into this rabbit hole of managing a huge Telegram community and responding to people that the speculators and investors that sort of you know kind of overwhelm just they just get overwhelmed by it. And so yeah, I mean, like that's kind of a maybe a non-answer to your question, but also maybe provides from some perspective on why there isn't a curve grid token. So I don't know, are you going to answer the same question?
Yeah, we are too early for that at the moment. Maybe
Sure,
maybe
sure,
we will launch that in the future. I'm not sure about that. We have the designs for the tokenomics, etc., but it all requires certain amount of the ecosystem players in that in order for that model to to get
sure,
thriving. Yeah, and
sure,
what is
sure.
most
Makes
one
sense.
of the most important feedback I got from other founders regarding the token launch is that your company will be evaluated by the market capitalization of your token. So whether
Mm,
you are doing good as a business or not will not be that important, but the token price. And in order to maintain certain levels of market cap to hold the floor for that, it takes so much activity, and you have to invest time and invest money in market making, in listings, in providing
mm,
liquidity, in incentives, etc. So it's a
sure,
separate business, and like uh, you either have a business that is operating in the traditional way and generating revenue, or you have a token company. You could combine, but generally it's like having two different operations.
sure, sure. Yeah, no, I get that. I get that. And I think that will become maybe less I don't know, maybe less mountainous, but also like easier to do, I think, in the coming years. I mean, I can see just startup equity like shifting on chain, for like standard startup companies. I could see that as a possibility.
Yeah, that's true. So, and for the company like yours, where you have mentioned that it is, the developer doesn't have to stick completely with your stack, and could potentially use some other solution, like for backend use Graph. You provided that example. And how do you make sure that your users are sticking with your product? How do you make sure that have a long-term retention of your customers? What are your some tricks?
Sure. Well, yeah, sure, sure. Well, I think the most critical thing is just providing a really good user experience, right? And so for our users, that means that we're there for them, right? We're responsive, we're responding to their questions, we're helping them out, we're being clear about our roadmap, we're offering value in our roadmap. You can go to some of these other projects, and I think you can try building them on a hackathon with them on a hackathon they're sponsoring, for example. But like, what does that experience look like if you're a business, and whether you're a one-person business or a three-person or five or 1,000-person business, when you need a partner, uh, a technology platform, and a company that can help you like really realize your vision and will be there for you when you know there's a massive issue on the blockchain, or when gas prices really spike and you're not sure what to do, or you've got questions about how do I architect this next piece of my this next piece of my product, right? I mean, and I think that's the value that we provide, and why our customers are with us and stick with us and grow with us, and recommend us to other companies. And I think sometimes that sort of level. I hate to say it about our industry, but I think sometimes the level-headedness and kind of the maturity that we really work to foster at Curvegrid, not only with our product but with how we conduct ourselves, and how we're there for our customers, is sometimes in short supply in the Web3 space. But we'd love to see more of that, right? And I think we try to lead by example as well.
That's a great answer. And a lot of the people, a lot of the businessmen, they forget about the most important part of providing the great user experience as a part of their retention strategy. And as the CEO of the payment company, I'm very interested to learn about the everything related to payments, and what are the most preferred payment methods. And also, it's quite interesting to learn about the domestic Japanese market. What are the most popular payment methods there in general and among your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's split, and I couldn't. I don't think I could tell you offhand of what the split is, but it's split in some major percentage, I think, between bank wire transfers for enterprise customers, credit card in some cases, and then on-chain payments as well, across a variety of kind of tokens and cryptocurrencies and chains also. And I think that, like, one of the interesting things that we see in terms of on-chain payments, I mean, we experience this ourselves, whether we're paying our vendors or receiving payments for our product, is how fast and easy it can be, at least for one-off payments. And so, I'm going to plug, at the risk of like plugging Yoki Finance a little bit here. I mean, I think we're very interested and very excited about what you folks are building, because I think that, like, the blockchain does one-off payments, whether it's in the core currency, like call it ETH, or in ERC20 tokens, and that's always been there, right? But I think that any of these more complex payment types, subscription payments, pay as you go, right? All of these, trial into a subscription. I think all of those things are something that we haven't probably explored enough, and I'm sure we will after this call with you folks. But I think there's a huge opportunity there going forward.
Are crypto payments allowed in Japan?
Yeah, absolutely. So cryptocurrency in Japan, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not your lawyer, I'm not an accountant, I'm not your accountant. Standard disclaimers, but basically at a high level, it's treated as a roughly equivalent under the law to a foreign currency and not an asset, and that applies to base coins as well as many ERC20 tokens as well. And so, as a corporation in Japan, we're able to pay vendors, receive payments in cryptocurrency. We obviously have to hold it on our balance sheet and declare it and pay tax on it in all kind of the right ways. But yeah, that's it. So I mean, and that applies to other Japanese companies as well.
Yeah, once again, not accounting advice.
Not accounting advice. That's right. I imagine that I'm wearing a T-shirt with that emblazoned on it, Konstantin. I'm not, but I should be. I should have that T-shirt.
A lot of the crystal balling. We are coming to the wrap up of our conversation. A little bit of the crystal balling at the end. Where do you see Curvegrid in the coming 5 years?
5 years is a long time. 5 years is a long time. So I mean, where were we in 2019? Like 2019, that's like pre Beeple, right? Like That's pre-DeFi summer. Aave hadn't launched or hadn't relaunched at least. I think pre-Polygon, pre-BSC, the heyday of like probably Plasma, or not even heyday, like, the rise of like Plasma, like maybe state channels. It's 5 years ago, Konstantin. Where are we going to be in 5 years from
Five
now?
years in
Well,
in crypto is 25 in the normal life.
That's right, exactly right. You've got like normal time, you've got like startup time, and then you've got like crypto and Web3 time. I would hazard a guess that in 5 years we will see the GAFAs deep into Web3. I think we'll see TradFi, traditional banking sector, deep into Web3. I think that we could have crypto wallets in iOS and on Android. I think that we could see people, using Web3 rails and blockchain rails with traditional banking infrastructure. That's where I think we'll be in 5 years. I also think in gaming and entertainment that we'll have decentralized ownership of media and entertainment as the norm and not the exception as well.
Yeah, and that perfectly fits what you're providing.
One more. I forgot. Yeah, one more. And everybody will be building on Multibass and Yoki Finance.
Yeah, that's something I was saying, that the narratives that you have mentioned, that changing trends fits perfectly to what you're building. If the institutionals are coming, if the gaming companies are coming, they have to rely on something trustworthy to build and on chain, because it's so complicated and have multiple layers into that. And if one of those institutions or AAA gaming companies or maybe novice developer listening to us, what is the best way to learn about Curvegrid and get involved with that?
So start at our website. Feel free to reach out to us on any of the socials, X, Twitter, Discord, Telegram, I guess Instagram and Facebook as well, or LinkedIn, of course. Go to our website. You can click on the icon at the top to get started. You can look at our docs and try out Multibass, but also feel free to reach out. And we'd love to talk to you about your blockchain use case and see if there's something that our platform or that we can do to help.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for the conversation.
Well, thank you, Konstantin. Really appreciate it. It's been absolutely illuminating, and looking forward to speaking more with you and the Yoki Finance team offline. And thanks everybody for joining today.
It was Crypto Subscription episode number 3 with Jeff Wentworth, co-founder of Curvegrid. And you will be able to listen to that podcast on YouTube, on Twitter, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all the other available podcast platforms. Thank you very much for listening to us.
Thank you.